On this video, I wanted to do an analysis, a grammatical analysis and comparison of the Masoretic Hebrew text and the Septuagint, beginning at verse 4 and following, which would be a read followed by grammar and then a comparison of the two. We've already done the first 3 verses in that, doing that very thing. So we begin by verse 4. Gam ki elek begates al mavet lo irara ki ata imadi shiftacha uminshantecha hema yanachamuni. I've done grammatical analysis for this in other videos, but I'm doing a comparison now. So indeed, though I walk a lake, though I walk in the valley of deep darkness, I will not fear evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Notice a lake is the cow imperfect first person singular from halak. Even though I walk, the gay salmavet, a gay is in construct from gai with salmavet, and salmavet means deep darkness. Even though I walk in the valley of deep darkness, lo ira ra, I shall not fear evil. This is from the root yara, which means to fear, a historically pay yod verb, a cow imperfect first common singular from yara. And notice the literary assonance or alliteration. Lo ira ra, I shall not fear evil. Something we can't get in translation, 2 different words, yara and ra, and yet a beautiful sound of literary assonance. Ki ata imadi, for you are with me. And then he goes on, and that's the centerpiece, by the way, of this psalm. When you take all the vowels and put it together, or all the consonants and put it together, the centerpiece is lo irara ki ata imadi. And then shiftacha uminshantecha hema yanachamuni. Your rod and your staff, they yanachamuni, they comfort me. Yanachamuni is from nacham, to comfort. Notice it's a PL imperfect, third masculine singular from nacham, and the kibbutz showing it's a third, I should say third plural, excuse me, third plural from nacham. Third masculine plural. So your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And the E here is your pronominal suffix, first person singular. The Septuagint then reads in verse 4, Angar kai parutho in mese skias thanatu u fabete samai kaka hatesu met amu e he hraptasu kai he bacteriasu haltai me parekalisin. Even though I should walk in the midst of the shadow of death, I shall not be afraid of evil things, or evil, I shall not be afraid of evil things, for you are with me, and then your rod and your staff, these comfort me. Notice here we have the subjunctive, even though I should walk. On is introducing a subjunctive. Parutho is the aorist passive subjunctive from paruo, even though I should walk in the midst of the shadow of death. 2 words where in Hebrew we could just render it deep darkness. Skia, actually in Hebrew, sal mavet, sal can mean shadow, mavet, death, but it's 1 word in Hebrew that means deep gloom or deep darkness. And then we go on, I shall not be afraid. Notice fabete samai is your future indicative passive first person singular from Fabeo. I shall not be afraid of evil things because you are with me. Notice A is your present indicative active second person singular from Amy. Your rod and your staff, these parakalasin, these comforted me. Here we have parakaleo, the aorist indicative active third person plural from parakaleo. And so those are a few differences when we look at the two in a comparative way. Then we move on, and what a wonderful thing to know that in the midst of the image here of moving between two mountains, the sun blocked off, uh, David says, I don't have to be afraid like the sheep following the shepherd, for you are there. And the shepherd could beat off wild beasts that might prey on the sheep, or someone that might try to attack the sheep to get the wool. I don't have to be afraid. So it could apply to any circumstance of life, knowing that you are there gives me assurance, David says. Then we move from that to a royal host in verses 5 and 6. Probably a Bedouin who invites one running from enemies into his tent and throws a party and feeds and gives drink, anoints the head of that one, and so forth. So we read the Hebrew, Ta'arok lefanai shulchan neged zororai, dishanta vashemen roshi kosi revaya. You arrange before me a table in the presence of those who are my adversaries. You anoint my head with oil. My cup is it's satiated. It's like a satiated cup. It's full and running over. Notice ta'arok is your cow imperfect. Second masculine singular from arak, to arrange. So you arrange before me a shulchan, a table, in the presence of my tzorarai, my enemies. Notice sarar means to oppose, and here we have a cow participle, masculine plural, with that o vowel, and the I ending gives it away as a plural participial form. It's a personal pronoun attached to plural participles or verbs, that comets yod. Then we read on, Dishanta Vashem and Roshi. Notice the alliteration again, the assonance, literary assonance. Dishanta Vashem Roshi. We're hearing the sheen all the way through here. And then Kosi, we're hearing the hirik yod, the I vowel. Roshi, Kosi, Levaya. Notice the Shanta is a PL perfect, second masculine singular from the Shan, to anoint. So you anoint with oil. Here we have a cognate accusative, Vashemen. Roshi, my head. Rosh, followed by the pronominal suffix, first person singular. Kosi, my cup is full and running over. Revaya, it's a satiated cup. And then as we go to the Septuagint, it reads, you prepare chetoi masas enopian mu trabetsan, exanantias ton thelipun ton me, elipanas in alio tain kefalein mu, kaita paterian su mathuskan hos gratistan. That is, you prepare before me a table. Actually, you prepare a table before me in the presence of those that are afflicting me. And then you have anointed with oil my head, and my cup is the very best, kratistan. Notice here, chetoi masas is the aorist indicative active second person singular from etoimazo. You prepared, that sigma gives it away as an aorist, and the epsilon being linked into an eta. You prepare before me a table in the presence of those who are afflicting me. Tone, the Liban tone, is from the libo, to afflict. Here we have a cow, or here we have, excuse me, a present participle, genitive masculine plural from the libo, of those who are afflicting me, and then alipanos in elio. That is, you have anointed with oil my head. Alipanos is from lipino, to anoint. Here again we have the aorist indicative active second person singular from lipino. You have anointed with oil my head, and my cup, actually mituskon, I'm going to render this, is a satiated cup. My cup is satiated, and I'm understanding it as an adjective, as the very best, kratistan, as the best. And so the Hebrew, sort of interesting, you anoint my head with oil, and my cup is satiated, that it's full and running over. The Septuagint added the very best, or the best, in that superlative form added here. So then we go to the next verse, which will be verse 6. Ach tov v'chesed yirdafuni kol yemei chayai v'shavti b'veit Adonai la'orek yamim. Surely goodness and loyal love will chase after me, will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will return unto the house of the Lord for length of days. Notice here, God's goodness and loyal love is chasing David, the psalmist, and Yerdafuni is from radaf, to pursue or to follow, and it is a cow imperfect, third masculine plural from radaf, followed by the pronominal suffix in the ni here. I'm taking the noon as a hinge. Will pursue me, and e is your actual pronominal suffix. Kol yemei chayai, all the days of my life. Two nouns in construct, the plural from yamim, becoming yamei in construct with chayai, of my life, from chayim, and I is your pronominal suffix on that plural noun, first person singular. V'shavti b'veit Adonai la'orek yamim. Now, v'shavti, I'm understanding that to be related to the verb shu. And if it was yashav, it would be yashavti, it would be I will dwell. But here, it seems to me, if we're using the verb shuv, the middle weak verb, we would render it, and I will return unto the house of the Lord for length of days. Unless we pointed it differently than the Masoretic text, shivti. If we took it as a cow infinitive construct with the pronominal suffix hirik yod, then we could render it, and my dwelling will be in the house of the Lord for length of days. But the way it's pointed in the Masoretic text, I'm understanding it personally to be from shu, to return. And so, and then I will return, cow perfect, first common singular from shu, unto the house of the Lord, le'orek yamim, for length of days. I'm going to keep going back to this house. I can't find a better place to be. Sort of like my mother one time said, Gary, you go to that house every day. It's almost like you live there. And that's because one of my friends, he had, his mother would fix these wonderful cookies, and I'm sort of a cookie monster, so I always enjoyed that. But it's sort of like the same idea. We keep going back to this house, David is saying, or I keep going back. And it's almost as though I dwell there, I live there. And again, it depends on whether you want to see Shevet, Shivti, as an infinitive construct from Yashav, or follow the Septuagint pointing Shafti, which would be from Shuv, a perfect first common singular. But then the Septuagint reads, Kaita Eliasu, kata dioxetime pasas tas chimeras te suesmu, kaita katoikeme in oiko curio, es mekrateti chimera. That is, and mercy, and your mercy shall pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell down in the house of the Lord unto length of days. Now, as I look at a little bit of the grammar here, and your mercy will pursue me from kata dioko. It is the future indicative middle, third person singular from kata dioko. And you add your sigma and it changes to exceed in this future form. So your mercy shall follow after me all the days of my life. What a beautiful thought. God's mercy chasing him, where the Hebrew had your mercy had actually goodness and mercy, tov b'chesed, where the Septuagint just reads, your mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. And kaita katoikain is from katoikeo. Here we have an infinitive from katoikeo becoming katoikain, which is a present active infinitive to dwell down with reference to me. And meh here is an accusative of general reference. So it can become the subject of that infinitive and its clause. And my dwelling, or I will dwell in the house of the Lord for length, mekrateta of days, for length of days. So when we look at the Septuagint and we compare it with the Hebrew grammatically, there's a few differences, especially in Salmavet, where it has skia, the shadow of death. And then we also see a difference in your mercy will pursue me, where your goodness, tov v'chesed, will chase after me. So there's some subtle, small differences in comparing the two texts. So what a beautiful thought to know that the Lord is our shepherd wherever we are, even in the dark moments of life, to have that assurance. And in the New Testament, Jesus applies that to himself when he said, I am the good shepherd. And we're taught that he said, I'm always with you. Lo, I am with you always, even unto the end of the age. What a beautiful application then when we look at the New Testament.